We move on to a team in the ranks of the ACC. It's Dave Clawson's Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and Sam Hartman left before last season, and well, last year, Wake Forest just was not the best football team. They really struggled offensively, especially some struggles defensively as well. Hey, they got some transfers coming in here, and Wake Forest, I think, has enough pieces to be sneaky competitive in the ACC. So is this team ready to cause some chaos and surprise in 2024 and get a rebound season? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. I want to welcome you to my channel and welcome you to prediction season. Whether this is the first video of mine or you've kept up with prediction season all the way so far, in which case, round of applause for you. I'm predicting all 134 FBS level college football teams this summer. Means I'm doing your favorite teams, so hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. I want to thank you for watching this video because it helps support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. And hey, watch my other videos. Like, subscribe, comment, share, anything you do to interact with the channel helps support what I do here on YouTube, and it does mean a lot to me. So with all of that now out of the way, talk about the Demon Deacons here in 2024. But how do we do that? Well, we're going to go take a deep dive into the team's offense, into the defense, and at the end of the video, we'll go through the Demon Deacon football schedule, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, right down there, I have put the team's coaching staff. We're going to start out by talking about the Wake Forest offense. And again, as I said in my intro, this is an offense that really struggled last year. They didn't even get 200 passing yards per game. The rush offense had their times where they definitely struggled, and just overall, it was not a pretty offensive season for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. It was also an offensive line that gave up 49 sacks last season. It does lose a couple quarterbacks from last year in Mitch Griffiths and Santino Marucci. Griffiths was the primary passer for the team last season with 1,553 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 7 picks. Marucci had 21 passing attempts for 151 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks there as well. So while you get Michael Kern back in this quarterback room, 647 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, it wasn't really the pop, or wasn't really the guy that Wake Forest was looking for at the quarterback position. So what do? Well, you dive on into the transfer portal, and you get a guy that at one point during his collegiate career was very, very highly touted. That is Hank Bachmeier, a former Boise State Bronco, and now most recently, he's transferring over from Louisiana Tech to play quarterback for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Now, last year was sort of up and down compared to what he did in 2021, which I'll read here in a second. 2023 was not a fantastic year for him. 2,058 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 5 picks. You're looking for a lot better of a touchdown-interception ratio from him. And again, he's a guy that had some pretty high expectations that fell below them. But back in 2021, he has proven he can play some really good football because he had a 3,000-yard season back then, 3,079 yards to be exact, with 20 touchdowns and 8 picks. You want to see that touchdown number go up. You want to see the interception number come down. He did have 67% completion percentage last year. And with a lot of the guys in this wide receiver room, well, that yardage number could definitely go up there as well. But Hank Bachmeier has a lot of the tools to be a solid quarterback, and I don't think we've really seen Hank Bachmeier play a full season to where he's at the best of his ability. Maybe 2021 is definitely that season that you go back and point to, but Hank Bachmeier's got some really good upside that we could see play out for the Demon Deacons here in 2024. Running back room, well, you do lose your leading rusher from your second leading rusher from last season, Justice Ellison. He's a very talented running back. He had 548 yards, only 1 touchdown on 120 carries last season. However, among the 2 backs that got the most carries last season, that was him and Damon Claiborne, who does return to this team. Ellison did have the higher yards per carry at 4.6. Claiborne, though, being the leading rusher last year, 4.3 yards per carry is not bad. 586 yards and 5 touchdowns for him and 137 carries last season. Tate Carney does come back. He averaged 5 yards per carry with 49 carries, 244 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And David Egby returns to this running back room as well. However, the wide receiver room is where this team really starts to take some hits. You lose your top wide receiver from last year in Jamal Banks. He is transferred over to go play for Matt Rule's group for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Keyshawn Banks is gone. We just talked about him a couple of videos ago. He's gone over to play for the Indiana Hoosiers, and Wesley Grimes is over to play for the NC State Wolfpack. Banks last season, 653 yards and 4 touchdowns. Grimes also had 4 touchdowns, 339 yards. Williams, 384 yards, 1 touchdown. But in all of that, And all of those losses there, yes, while Banks is an extremely important player to this offense, he is a very, very good player. Banks and Grimes, or Jamal Banks and Keyshawn Williams. Let me fix that. Okay, I sincerely apologize for that. I knew something didn't sound right, so I had to fix it. Jamal Banks, Keyshawn Williams, Wesley Grimes. There we go. I might have even said Keyshawn Williams and just had Keyshawn Banks on screen, so my apologies for that. But again, all those guys, very important pieces nonetheless to this wide receiver room. When you go over to who comes back, though, well, look, Taylor Morin coming back is a huge part. He's a huge downfield threat for this team. Averaged 15 yards per catch last season, 41 catches, 617 yards, 2 touchdowns for the team last season. He should be that number one wide receiver here for the Demon Deacons in 2024. Horatio Fields, Donovan Green, Deuce Alexander, Walker Merrill, Micah Mays are also all pieces that return to this wide receiver room, as well as a 4-star freshman in Jeremiah Melvin, who, hey, who knows, we could see get some solid playing time for the Demon Deacons wide receiver group this year. And with no notable losses in the tight end room, Cameron Height, Michael Froggy, and Ryan DuPont all come back here. Height, the leading receiver. In fact, the only guy that caught a pass for tight ends last season, 13 receptions for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. Offensive line, you do lose Michael Juergens to the NFL. Really good offensive lineman for this team last year. And Spencer Clapp is gone due to graduation. So, Devontae Gordon, Luke Pettitborn, Matt Golbin, Nick Sharp, Eric Russell, Hank Lucas, George Sell, and Zach Vaughn, all pieces that were part of Wake Forest's 2 deep, or maybe even they sat back in that number 3 position in respective offensive line positions last year. You will get a combination of those 5 guys starting on your offensive line for the Demon Deacons here in 2024. Again, I apologize for that error with Keyshawn Williams, but nonetheless, when you talk about the right-hand side column and what the Demon Deacons have coming back here in 2024, Hank Bachmeier coming in, again, how well does he play? I think that is going to tell a lot about what this Wake Forest team is going to be here in 2024. The wide receiver room is good. You have a lot of returning pieces in the running back room, but the offensive line has also got to get better. It loses one of its better offensive linemen from last year in Michael Juergens. How do they fill in the pieces, and how does this offensive line get better? If the offensive line can't provide support to this run game, can't open up holes, it can't provide support in pass protection for Hank Bachmeier, it's going to be a long season for the Wake Forest offense. Again, those numbers could look pretty similar if those things don't change from last season. They could get solid quarterback play out of Bachmeier, but the offensive line has got to be better than it was last season. Defensively for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, what are we talking about with this program? Well, overall, we're talking about a defense that had some pretty good moments last season, but overall, I mean, you take a look in the stats there, just are not fantastic. It does lose a lot of talent in the defensive backfield, but we'll talk about that when we get there because we have to start out with the defensive front 7 first. All right, leaving through the defensive line room, Jalen Hudson is going to be gone. He has run out of he has not run out of eligibility. I read that wrong. He has now gone through the transfer portal. No graduations on the defensive side here. So Jalen Hudson will be resuming his college eligibility elsewhere. Again, he is a loss to this defensive line room. Not a notable one at that, though. 4 tackles last season was more of a depth piece than anything. You get most of your really, really talented defensive linemen and the defensive linemen that contributed most last season coming back, including Jasheen Davis, who led the team with 7.5 sacks last season. So you are going to be getting him back. He's a very talented player and the leading tackler among defensive linemen last year. Kevin Pointer, Kendron Wayman, Bryce Ganius, BJ Williams, and Justin Cody used to be Justin Williams. He has made a name change over to Justin Cody, so he has changed that last name. I know that might be confusing to some people, but he was Justin Williams last season. This season, he is Justin Cody, so I will put that in people's heads. He is coming back, and you are getting a guy over from the portal in Mateen. I will butcher this last name. Mateen Ibaragba. I had to pause there just in case I decided to stumble over that last name, but Mateen Ibaragba, again, probably butchered that last name, so I apologize, is coming in to play defensive line for this team here in 2024. Linebacker room, well, you lose one of your more talented defensive players overall from last season. That was Jacob Roberts, 83 tackles, which was second on the team. He was also second on the team in sacks, right behind the returner on the defensive line, Jasheen Davis. He had 6 of them. You tack on a pass defender, and overall was a really good season for Jacob Roberts, and rightfully so. You'll now see him playing on Sundays. Dylan Hazen, Quincy Bryant, and Aiden Hall are all returners to this linebacker room, while you do get Branson Combs coming in through the transfer portal. Brandon Combs coming over, I believe, from Southern Illinois. I do believe that is correct. I believe the Southern Illinois Salukis is where he is coming from. If that's not correct, please leave it down in the comment section below. I'd love to be corrected on that. But nonetheless, he is a transfer coming over. And by the way, Ibaragba's coming over from Georgetown. Defensive back room, let's talk about it because a lot of good talent does leave this defensive back room. Starting with the cornerback room, Kalen Carson is gone. 42 tackles, led the team with 8 passes defended. He will be leaving, as well as Deshaun Jones and A.J. Williams. Both of those guys are gone through the transfer portal. Jones had the team lead with 3 interceptions last season. Only a team that picked off 8 passes. You lose 3 of them right there when Deshaun Jones does leave, and A.J. Williams, pretty solid defensive back for this team last season. And you do lose 2 guys in the safety room, much like Kalen Carson. You'll also see playing on Sundays. Malik Mustafa was the team's 3rd leading tackler, 80 tackles, half a sack, 2 pass defended, 1 pick. He is gone. Chalon Garnes is also going to be gone, the team's 4th leading tackler, right behind Mustafa, 61 tackles, a sack and a half, 5 pass defended. Both those guys you'll see playing in the NFL on Sundays. And Brendan Harris is gone through the transfer portal. Harris last season, I don't believe was much more than a depth piece on this team last year. Yeah, only 1 tackle for him last season. Nonetheless, though, is a loss through the transfer portal out of the safety room. So, defensive back room, what does it look like in 2024? Well, Jamari Glasker and DeMarcus Rankin are going to be coming back here to play cornerback here for this team. When you go ahead and take a look at what some of those guys did last year, well, Glasker, the most notable one there. Only 16 tackles for him last season, Rankin with 15. So the cornerback room got to take a step up. Oh, I do want to backtrack for a little bit there. By the way, I did want to say that Dylan Hazen was the team's leading tackler last season. Okay, now back to the defensive backside. Capone Blue is a transfer coming over from the Kent State Golden Flashes. And even though Kent State wasn't a great football team last season, Capone Blue was one of their better pieces. He has come over to play football for the Demon Deacons. Nick Anderson, Evan Slocum, Devon Patterson, and Rashawn Tung are all coming back in this safety room. Anderson had 33 tackles last season. Slocum is a high upside defensive back, had 29 tackles last season. And kickers are people too. You know I like to show them some love. Ivan Moore, Tyler Black are back to do some punting duties, while Matthew Dennis is back to do the kicking for Wake Forest here in 2024. Okay, overall, talking about this defense this upcoming season, it should still be a fairly solid defense. And yes, it loses a lot of pieces from last season. Mustafa, Garnes, and Carson in that defensive backfield. Jacob Roberts was a huge piece to what this team did defensively. He was pretty much all over the field here, making tackles, rushing the quarterback, defending the run. Again, Jacob Roberts, probably one of your better defensive players from last season. But you do get your sack leader in Jasheen Davis back. That'll provide some life to the pass rush. You are able to supplement fairly well with some transfer portal pieces, but a lot of that depth is going to have to shine through for Wake Forest's defense this year. The starters are going to have to play well, and the depth is going to have to step up when they need it and when it matters here for the Demon Deacons. Defense maybe should sit right around the same as it was last season. If you're looking for anything to improve, well, obviously you want all those numbers to improve, but especially that third down defense, get opposing offenses off the field at a more effective rate. When you dive on into the schedule here for the Demon Deacons, it looks like this. Any game at home will be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's that slanted text. Any game in green is going to be a game that I think the Demon Deacons are going to win easily, much like the game to start out the season against North Carolina A&T. Should be a win there. Any game in yellow will be a close competitive game, but a game that I still see Wake Forest winning nonetheless. And any game in red is a loss. Again, quick water break before we dive on in. Make sure you stay hydrated because it is important. They got to go up with a home game against the Virginia Cavaliers. Now, Virginia, they're going to hang with Wake Forest this season, especially while Wake Forest tries to get some things figured out in the early going here. Now, I know you might be saying, Virginia, haven't they been really bad the past couple of years? Yes, they have. And the sad thing is with Virginia, that still might translate to a not very good record at the end of the day for this Cavalier program at the end of 2024, but they're going to be a much better team. They're going to be a much more competitive team, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Virginia win this game. However, that being said, I think Wake Forest has got too many high upside pieces offensively, and Virginia's got a lot of question marks for me defensively. The defense over the past couple seasons just has not been very good, and while it has some talent on it, I definitely think that if Hank Bachmeier can play well, if this offensive line can start to figure some things out early, well, Virginia is going to go down here, and Wake Forest should start out the season 2-0. Oh, Ole Miss is up next, and even though this is a home game for Wake Forest, and even though Wake Forest has some good high upside pieces, you're not going to slow down what Lane Kiffin, Jackson Dart, and just the staple of Ole Miss's offense is going to be able to do. I don't think Wake Forest has the defensive pieces necessary to do that, and I don't think that they have the offensive pieces to keep up with the tempo and the pace and the rate that Ole Miss is going to be scoring. On top of that, Ole Miss's defense keeps improving year in and year out. That's a loss for me to the Ole Miss Rebels, a team I really like out of the SEC this season. Home game against the Raging Cajuns, the fourth straight home game to open up this season. Got to watch out for Louisiana again. This game is highlighted in yellow, not because of the point value that I've assigned to it here. They probably will win this game by more than 2 touchdowns, but Louisiana is going to be a solid team out of the Sun Belt Conference. They're going to be a really talented group, and I think you got to watch out for Louisiana here in 2024. So to me, that's still a win for Wake Forest, but a team you have to watch out for absolutely on this schedule, especially after that game against Ole Miss. But it really helps out the Wake Forest has an extra week of preparation because their first bye week is right before that game against Louisiana, so that's going to help them out a lot. You get into SEC, or I should say, you get not SEC, you get into ACC play, and you get into a full-time ACC play, I should say. And congrats, you got to start off with 2 teams I think are going to be really, really good in the ACC this year. Starting out with NC State, Grayson McCall is coming in, Jordan Waters is coming in, some really other talented pieces coming in at the wide receiver position for the NC State Wolfpack. Dave Doran's group always plays a solid brand of defense. And NC State will be right there, near or at the top of the ACC this upcoming season. That is a loss for me, especially being the first road game for Wake Forest. Got to go up against a really good NC State team. Clemson is up here coming up next in week 7. And the Tigers, look, I know the offense hasn't been great over the past couple of seasons, but I think Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley are going to make that year 2 jump. And Clemson, well, defensively, while they haven't maybe been elite like they have been in some of the past couple of seasons, I do think that they are still going to be a really, really good defensive team, and they will take a step back being towards one of the elite and better defenses in college football this season. So 2 losses there, after the first half, you are 3-3. However, I do think you should win your next 2 games, even though they are both on the road. They are both highlighted in yellow. And you have to watch out for these teams for respective reasons. UConn has a lot of pieces and enough to be feisty. And look, we saw them make a bowl game back in 2022. It's a team I liked in 2023 that underperformed. UConn, not a team I like as much coming in this season, but a team that I feel like can still be competitive with Wake Forest. That being said, Wake Forest, in my opinion, does have more talent. If they play at the best of their abilities, they should be able to win. That should be a win there. And I just don't think Stanford is going to be any good this season. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in a Power 5. That should be a win for Wake Forest there. Troy Taylor's group has got to show me they can be a little bit more competitive. And maybe they do this season. I'm not counting on it, though. I got Wake Forest winning that one. So you are 1 win away from getting to a bowl game. And you got a lot of teams on the schedule that you should be able, well, not should, that I say you could beat to be able to clinch your spot in a bowl game. Well, unfortunately, it's going to be really hard to do so, in my opinion. After your second bye week, you got to come home and play Cal. And look, that is a Friday game. It's going to be a long road trip for Cal. But I really like this California team here in 2024. And I think they're going to walk away with the win here in this game. I think Cal's got a lot of very nice pieces offensively, some good pieces defensively. And I think Justin Wilcox is sneakily building a Cal team that I think is going to be able to be a really competitive team for years to come. I do like Justin Wilcox as the head coach. I think he got a little bit more hate during the time where California just wasn't making bowl game. Look, Jay Nott is back. He was a really good running back last season, a ton of offensive talent. And it's just a Cal team that overall I really like here in 2024, and I like better than Wake Forest. So even though it's the home game for Wake Forest, a game to where, hey, they get an extra week of preparation, Cal has to make the long road trip, I think Cal's the better team. I think the better team wins this one here. I think Cal beats Wake Forest. 2 road games against North Carolina and Miami, and North Carolina on the road, fairly manageable spot in my opinion. They did lose Drake May. They did lose Devontae Walker. They did lose some really good defensive pieces, but Omarion Hampton is coming back, led by an offensive line that, well, should be pretty solid here in 2024. And North Carolina's got still some talented pieces defensively. I just think Wake Forest is going to struggle to slow down Omarion Hampton. He'll have himself a really, really big game, and North Carolina will beat Wake Forest there. So, okay, now things are getting worrisome here. I don't think you're going to go on the road and beat Miami because the Hurricanes are very talented this season. I also think they're going to be one of the better teams in the ACC this season. Miami coming into the season, they have Cam Ward at quarterback, Damian Martinez at running back, Xavier Restrepo leads a really good group of wide receivers back, some very talented pieces come back defensively for the Miami Hurricanes, and I just don't think Wake Forest is going to be able to compete with the Hurricanes this season, especially on the road. And I do think they lose to Duke as well. Duke is a team that I think is going to surprise a little bit of people this year. No, they might not win 8 or 9 games, but Manny Diaz coming in at head coach. You have Malik Murphy coming in, some solid offensive pieces return, and some good pieces coming through the portal. Duke's a team I like out of the ACC this year. I got to tell you, I think they're going to be pretty darn good. Leads me to a 5-7 record for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. So no, not quite to a bowl game, on the higher end of my record range. Again, Wake Forest has a lot of pieces to be competitive, and there are winnable games for them to get to a bowl game, but there are a lot of teams on the schedule I just happen to like better, and I think Wake Forest falls a little bit short. Let me know what you think about the Demon Deacons in the comment section below, and as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. We'll talk about the UCLA Bruins in my next video. Goodbye.